Hello, I am here, and I have two great guests joining me today. From Indivisible, it's Ezra Levin, and then I've got comedian, commentator, and host of Parenting is a Joke, our friend Ophira Eisenberg, who is going to be joining us out in Vegas at the end of the month. Haven't talked to Ophira in way too long. We had a great conversation, and you'll love the inspiring and very passionate Ezra Levin. He starts at 37 minutes, and my conversation with Ophira begins at an hour and 2 minutes. But I've also got your headlines, clips, and today's good stuff. Sorry I'm late, but we had a great time at last night's hangout. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a clip from our great friend Vicky, our queen, inspiring us at the end of the hangout to not give up and to continue the fight. It's really great. But we also had a lot of laughs. We panicked. We shared news stories and ideas. We went off on tangents. It was great. If you are a stand-up subscriber, a member of our community with a paid subscription, you'll be getting an email, as you do every day, with a link to last night's hangout if you want to watch it. It was really great. But I'm going to start right now with your good stuff and last night's hangout. Here was what it sounded like when Vicky said this at the end. After she said it, I just decided I had to end the hangout because sometimes you have a moment so great you just can't top it, and I know when to get off stage. So leading up today's good stuff segment, a dose of good stuff from the always awesome Vicky.
I just want to say before we go, folks, I know this is heavy. I know life is hard, and I know this shit has just driven you mad, but please know that there are people in your corner who are pulling for the same thing. This whole community, not just us, there are other communities that are pulling for the same thing. Don't give up. Unplug if you have to. Step away if you have to. Touch grass. Look at trees. Look at rain. Look at anything other than the shitstorm that's going on. But recharge yourselves and be ready for the fucking battle. There's a battle coming, and we've got to be strong enough, ready enough to take it on. Don't give up, folks. I love you. We've got this. It's inside of us. You're the best, and we can do this.
Love you.
We're gonna beat this motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh, that was so good, Vicky. So good. You heard Karen there at the end. We wouldn't let her leave. It was a lot of fun last night, and it was a great way to close it. And Vicky has provided us with so many amazing moments, from singing to us to inspiring us with her words. She is an amazing human being, and we always love when she's there. She's usually there, and it's never as good when she's not. Thank you, Vicky. Love it. All right, and now let's go to Stacey Abrams with another spoonful of good stuff and inspiration and motivation.
We all know folks who have decided to take a break from the news and from the world. Those who have opted for what is called internal exile. You know, shutting out the constant stream of, oh my God, that thing that happens with every new appointment or all caps pronouncements from the incoming administration. I know what it feels like to want to hide, to want to shut out the world and say, I'll show up when things are fixed. But then I realized that what they wanted was for me to shut down. They wanted me to shut up, to tune out, to turn off, and to let them do what they wanted. And we feel a deep visceral need to do that now because it can be overwhelming to confront what is to come. We all listen to the pronouncements from Project 2025. Our job is not to simply survive the next few years. Our job is to win.
That's right. I like it. I'll take it. I'll use it for whatever that's worth to you, from Stacey Abrams, who has been a phenomenal leader. And now finally, I want to go to my friend Roy Wood Jr., comedian, commentator, host of his own CNN show now. He was out at Sundance, I think, promoting a new film that he is starring in. It's called Love, Brooklyn, but he had some really good advice for how to cope in these times, and I thought it would be a great way to wrap up the good stuff segment. Take it away, Roy.
You have to be very intentional about when you decide to consume the things that you feel are corroding your peace. There's going to be a volume of news and information. Some of it is to inform you, some of it is deliberately to emotionally affect you. So you have to start recognizing the difference between the two. But I think for me, the thing that's helped me the most in the last 2 years, like we just go since leaving Daily Show, I watch local news, I read a paper. 9 times out of 10, if you ingest your news through reading, there's a lot less of a slant to it, just simply in how you ingest copy versus how you listen to someone talk to you. If news is bothering you and you still need to get information, switch to reading instead of the television and deliberately connect with the things that make you happy or bring you joy, or like when your mood is altered for a positive, denote those things that happen. What did you eat? Where did you go? Who did you talk to? Like those are all catalysts for that emotion, and just repeat that. And I think that's the most rudimentary way to start in terms of, figuring things out. I just think it's going to be a very interesting times ahead. And I think that's why, films like this matter. You can legislate DE&I and all of the whatever anti-diversity out of every government building. But in the creative space, we have the power. And so these stories matter. So find the things that matter to you as well and just ingest the stuff that contributes to your piece.
Wow, listen to Roy Wood with the cognitive behavioral therapy advice. Sounds like he's got a CBT therapist or he's become one. Really smart. I love that advice, and I thought that was a great way to wrap up today's segment of The Good Stuff. If you're feeling good, then maybe now is the time to press pause or to skip to the interviews, because I'm about to run through the headlines. They are stressful. Maybe you don't need to know them. So this is your warning that I am starting in on the headlines. The headlines, which are aberrations. They are all the mostly bad things because they're not normal. There are infinite moments of love and kindness being spread throughout the world each and every moment, but here are the ones that aren't, and they are your headlines. We got the job numbers for January. They're not great. The labor market added 143,000 jobs in January, and I think that's because Trump took over. I think it's pretty clear that's why. I don't know what the actual examination of those job numbers are, but that's the big headline, or the first headline for you here on Friday. More than 10,000 people who work for USAID are going to be gone. The Trump administration plans to keep only about 290 people at USAID, a story we're going to continue to closely follow here and the consequences of it. They fund medical research around the world. New York Times says that the shutdown has already left scores of people with experimental drugs and devices in their bodies with no access to care. Kevin Richburg talked about that, I think, at last night's Hangout, and you can read about it at the New York Times and other outlets. For the second time this week, a federal judge issued an injunction to block the effort to end birthright citizenship that the bad man signed an executive order on day one. The Justice Department has appealed the ruling. We'll see what happens. Attorneys general in over a dozen states are preparing a lawsuit to block Elon Musk's Doge team from gaining access to government computer systems that contain sensitive information, but too little too late, it would seem. He's already in there. He's been in there for days, for hours, and every minute, downloading, uploading, and maybe changing things. Who knows? That's what has a lot of us in a kind of constant sense of panic, it would feel when you think about that. So, calming breath. The NCAA said transgender women could not compete in women's college sports. Yep, the NCAA has aligned its policy with the executive order from the president this week. So they have capitulated, and that's a really interesting story to follow. It affects probably, I think, 5 athletes. The Senate also confirmed one of the biggest villains that we have got to know, the architect of Project 2025, Russell Vought. He is now the head of the Office of Management and Budget. Democratic senators pulled an all-nighter delivering speeches to protest his confirmation, but it was always inevitable. But hopefully that brought more attention to this cartoon villain now leading the OMB. Also, the president ordered the firing of the chair of the FEC, that's the Federal Election Commission. But she said his move was not legal. So that'll be an interesting story to follow. Ellen Weintraub has served as commissioner for the nation's top elections watchdog since 2002. She did not recognize a letter from President Trump relieving her from her post as legally valid. This is what we need. What exactly will this lead to? Also yesterday, our authoritarian Christian nationalist president, he's not necessarily one himself, but he is fully in support of the agenda and, in fact, leading it in many ways. Yesterday, he convened a task force to fight anti-Christian bias. That's right, anti-Christian bias. And we really probably should talk about that and examine that with some of our favorite guest experts that join us here on the show on a regular basis. Trump also signed an executive order placing sanctions on the International Criminal Court months after the court issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm guessing that was one of the asks that Bibi had for Trump when he joined him in the Oval Office a couple of days ago. Also, thought this was interesting reporting about the European Union. Apparently, they spent last year compiling a secret playbook for how to respond if Trump wins and raises tariffs. You can read all about that. A plane carrying 10 people went missing off the coast of Alaska, and a U.S. military contractor plane crashed in Philippines, killing all 4 people on board. But don't worry, Trump said he would work with Congress to improve aviation safety yesterday, so I'm sure everything will be much better now. And finally, a power company in California, Southern California Edison, said that it found equipment irregularities near the origin of what was called the Eaton fire. And so that's an interesting story to follow about the fires out there in California, which is my understanding are all out for now. All right, well, those are your headlines. And this weekend, of course, it's the Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing in New Orleans. And now it's time to get to your audio. And I want to start that audio with a clip from the acting head of the FBI, Brian Driscoll, who a couple days ago, 2 days ago, nights ago, put out this video, which is pretty unusual. The FBI puts out plenty of videos, and in the first part of the video, it was normal because he was talking about the top 10 most wanted, and those videos get put out as press releases often from the FBI. I don't think most people pay attention to them, but it's not totally unusual. But it's the rest of what Brian Driscoll had to say about the FBI. This guy's been fighting with orders from the acting attorney general and Department of Justice to fire FBI agents, and he is a secret champion. He's become amongst the rank and file and the former feds. And so here he is. This is what he sounds like. A lot of people talking about what he looks like, too, because he's a handsome guy with curly hair and a goatee and seems like quite a badass because he also served on hostage rescue teams and fought terrorists in Syria and Afghanistan. Anyway, here's Brian Driscoll with a special motivating message to help lift the morale, if possible, for those working in the FBI and the rest of us watching.
That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the exceptional work the FBI has been doing lately. Every day, our men and women are working hard to be there for our partners and keep our communities safe. That includes all the work we've been doing to support the Department of Homeland Security in its immigration enforcement efforts. We've got special agents, intelligence analysts, and more supporting DHS teams across the country, from New York and Chicago to El Paso, Newark, and Denver. So far, this work has led to the arrest of dangerous criminals and terrorists all across the country. And we've taken illegal firearms off the streets and out of our communities. At the same time, our people are hard at work with our local, state, and federal partners in the run-up to this Sunday's Super Bowl. In addition to our team in New Orleans, we've deployed scores of FBI employees to surge in support of this effort, from bomb techs to SWAT operators to intelligence analysts. And each one of them is focused on keeping the event safe for everyone. Our teams have also been working around the clock to respond to the tragic plane crashes in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. in support of recovery efforts. All of that work is critically important to our partners and to the American people. But it doesn't even scratch the surface of the work the men and women in the FBI are doing every single day across the country and around the world to keep people safe. We will never take our eyes off of our mission, protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution. Because at the Bureau, we're focused on the work. And people we do the work with, our partners, and the people we do the work for, the American people. Thank you.
All right, Brian Driscoll hanging tough. It'll be very interesting to see the reaction to that and what happens to him. Pay close attention to that. And all right, well, let me move on to the editor of the Financial Times. I love this guy, Ed Luce. You see him on MSNBC. He is a regular on Deep State Radio with David Rothkopf. He was joining Katie Couric for her show, and this is what he had to say. It's really terrifying and upsetting, but he's a very smart guy, and I think his analysis is excellent, and he doesn't hold back. And I learned a little bit here about Elon Musk from Ed Luce.
The world has turned that a nostalgic product of apartheid South Africa, Elon Musk, whose grandparents moved there after the Second World War. They were in the Canadian Nazi Party, his maternal grandparents. They moved to apartheid South Africa to be with people with whom they felt at home. A family legacy that he's not repudiated. That his mother very much carries on. If you've sort of caught her at all on TV, she turns up both sides of the Atlantic. She's a alt-right sort of unapologetic exponent of what her son is also pushing, and his algorithm is also promoting on his social media site. And this is far-right politics, hatred of multiculturalism. What he said to the AFD rally that he addressed, in that sort of Orwellian big screen, his face comes up. And he says you should no longer feel guilt for what your grandparents or great-grandparents did. It was very clear what he was talking about in a speech that attacks immigration and multiculturalism, the idea that different races cannot live together. This is not something we should just dismiss as the sort of bloviation or the trolling of a sort of Silicon Valley tycoon. This is the sort of shadow president of the United States. And Trump doesn't contradict him, and sometimes Trump echoes him and amplifies him, and vice versa. I cannot stress the newness of this, and the ominous, so the tone of menace to this is very real, and it's being noticed, all around the world, including in allied countries that thought they were allies of the United States and are now beginning to wonder.
Yeah, that is right. And if you want more proof about it, here is an Australian senator, a member of the Green Party down there, who I'm going to actually try to get on the show. His name is Nick McKim. He's the Australian Greens whip. He's a senator in Australian Parliament. And yesterday, Australia passed a law against giving Nazi salutes. So this isn't just words. And I want to talk to this guy. Here he is.
If you can't see the slide into fascism that's currently happening in the United States, you are simply not paying attention. At Donald Trump's inauguration, as the billionaire oligarchs lined up to pay their obeisance, the biggest of them all, the most highest profile of them all, the person with probably the biggest social media reach in the world, in part because he owns one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, Elon Musk, literally gave a Nazi salute at the president's inauguration. And for people who are going to try to argue that it wasn't actually a Nazi salute, I'll say this. If you're one of the highest profile people in the world and a massive global debate erupts about whether or not you gave a Nazi salute, and you don't come out and say it wasn't a Nazi salute, then it was a Nazi salute. It was a Nazi salute. The United States is sliding into fascism under Donald Trump. And it is marginalised communities who are going to pay the price. Black-skinned and brown-skinned people, migrants in the US, women in the US, transgender and queer folks in the US. They're going to be persecuted and they're going to be demonised, blamed for all the problems of the day. And you know what else is going to pay the price? Nature is going to pay the price under his drill baby drill policies of destroying nature. Climate is going to pay the price, as we're already seeing a withdrawal from global climate action. President Trump is a disaster for humanity. He belongs behind bars, not in the Oval Office.
Damn, Senator Nick McKim down in Australia. telling it like it is. And if you need more evidence that we are sliding into fascism, just look to what we are seeing CBS's parent company, Paramount, owned by the Redstones, Sherry Redstone, the heir to Sumner's media empire. And I thought it was really interesting to hear Jake Tapper's description of what is happening at CBS Paramount around the lawsuit filed by Trump for like $10 billion against CBS and 60 Minutes for editing, for him saying they edited a tape of Kamala Harris. They edited it, but it didn't change anything, and there's nothing wrong with editing. All of these news outlets do that for Time. Fox News did it with their interview with Trump. Anyway, I thought this was a pretty good description of what it means and why it's happening from Jake Tapper. Important that he's doing that on CNN, because if his company ends up making deals, he's going to have to call them out too, isn't he? Well, here he is.
The 60 Minutes editing case would almost certainly fail spectacularly in court, according to legal experts. But Paramount Global, which owns CBS News, is currently trying to merge with Skydance Media. And in order to do that, Paramount will need the approval of the Trump administration, specifically the FCC, which, under its new commissioner, Brendan Carr, has suggested that Trump's news distortion complaint will be considered by the FCC before any merger can be approved. Enter Sherry Redstone, the owner of Paramount, who stands to make about $8 billion if this deal goes through. Said one CBS News employee to me about this, quote, "Everyone expects Sherry settles with Donald Trump. She is not concerned about her legacy, democracy, or the work we do. It's only about the deal, her pocketbook. The only way she wouldn't settle is if Skydance sent her a smoke signal to hold off. Surely they realize a settlement diminishes the brand and value of 60 Minutes, which they claim to admire and want to own," unquote. For Paramount to settle this suit would be hoisting a white flag of surrender. It would be the network of Edward R. Murrow, at the behest of its owners, saying, "We will not speak truth to power. We will acquiesce to power at the expense of truth." President Trump has sued any number of individuals in the news media over the years, and the regular media. Bill Maher, journalist Tim O'Brien, CNN, and he has almost always lost, because it doesn't seem like the point is actually to win. It seems like the point is to make people think twice before they will say anything critical about him. But his latest lawsuits represent a dangerous escalation. Mr. Trump is also going after the Des Moines Register and its former pollster, Ann Selzer, for, quote, brazen election interference, unquote. Why? Well, because of a faulty poll that wrongly suggested before the election that Trump would lose Iowa. The Des Moines Register is fighting that lawsuit, though, while it looks like Paramount will settle. The CBS News employee expressed their opinion about all of this to me, saying, quote, "Let's call it what it is. It's a bribe." Now, we should note representatives for Paramount and Sherry Redstone and Skydance continue to decline to comment on any of this. You know, you live long enough and you see how eroded standards that politicians think work for their side always end up being wielded against them. And at that point, it doesn't even matter who started it. It just matters that corporations are leaning on news divisions to supplicate themselves to whomever's in power because of their bottom line and the implied threat from the government. As a great CBS newsman once warned about television, this instrument can teach, it can illuminate, yes, and even it can inspire, but it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it's nothing but wires and lights in a box, unquote. Sherry Redstone seems to have taken the wrong lessons from that speech. If Sherry Redstone settles, she may as well take the wires and lights and the box and sell them for parts.
Well, there you go. Commentary from Jake Tapper and a warning probably to his bosses at CNN not to do the same thing we've seen from these other companies. Or maybe they already have and I missed it or forgotten it. All right, let's hear from some Democratic lawmakers who are doing whatever they can, it would seem. Let's start with Jasmine Crockett yesterday in the oversight hearing. She had this to say. I think it doesn't really need much of a setup.
Here is the deal. I want the American people to understand that Democrats are not against efficiency. In fact, the last time that this country actually ran to the extent that there was a balanced budget and actually there was a surplus, it was a Democrat in the White House. His name was President Clinton. So we are not against this. What we are against is this idea that we will evade the Constitution or we will evade our own constitutional, in fact, it's not even an invasion. At this point, it feels as if y'all have just decided that y'all are going to castrate your constitutional duty and hand it over to someone who is unelected. It doesn't matter how many cheerleaders he had on the fields campaigning for him. That doesn't mean that he gets to go in and sit atop any of our agencies. And the fact that we had a vote today and we asked to bring him in because we have a constitutional duty, we all took our oath, and maybe some of y'all just don't take it seriously. But I take it seriously when I take an oath to do a job, and my job is to look out and make sure that we don't have any kings or queens in this country. But it seems like y'all have decided that it's going to be Mr. King and his queen, and y'all can pick which one is which.
Ooh, she's so good. I think Elon Musk is king, and I think Trump is queen. I want to put it that way. I like it that way. All right, here's Senator Chris Murphy, who I find myself playing clips from a few days a week. I like this guy, and I think he's on, I don't know where he was. Anyway, listen.
Like a real opposition party in the middle of a constitutional and democracy crisis. That means we should not. People understand that we are the minority party. We don't run the White House. We are the minority in the House and in the Senate. But we need to act like a real opposition party in the middle of a constitutional and democracy crisis. That means we should not be moving forward nominees or legislation in the United States Senate. Democrats should not be giving votes to nominees or to legislation in the United States Senate until Republicans get serious about this crisis. Democrats should not help Republicans raise the debt ceiling in order to pass their massive tax cut for billionaires and millionaires. Democrats should be leading public gatherings all weekend, all across the country, to bring Americans out to show Republicans that they will pay a price. And then Democrats need to speak in really stark terms about what is going on here. Yes, we are obsessed with subtleties, but I don't think it's a mystery as to what is happening here. I think this is a billionaire power grab. I think Elon Musk is trying to steal our money, is trying to steal our data. I think Elon Musk is shutting down the USAID because he wants to do deals with China and make more money. And I know that there are some in the Democratic Party that, don't like jumping to conclusions, that there are some in the Democratic Party that don't like to call out specific billionaires for what they are doing to all of us. But this is a moment in which we've got to engage in very simple and strong terms about what is happening, side by side with being a true opposition party in the Senate, using our tools to make life difficult for complicit Republicans, and then going out there and leading a public engagement, which is, I think, the next step that we have to do. Don't just fight on the inside, go fight on the outside. So all of those things are vital. I don't know that all of my Democratic colleagues were there a week ago. I'm hoping that they are going to get there this week. I think many of them are.
All right, Senator Chris Murphy. That I thought was important, and he's doing a lot of good work, leadership in the Senate. If only they would replace Chuck Schumer with him or somebody else. There's a lot of good senators, Democratic senators. All right, now let's get back to the House. This is on the House floor. Legislation being introduced by Democrats that will go nowhere, but still, I like it. This is Haley Stevens. She is a congresswoman from Michigan, and I just love the performance here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I stood with the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic whip, Catherine Clark, and our House Democratic Chair, Pete Aguilar, and Congressman Sean Casten to introduce the Taxpayer Data Protection act, because what is going on in the Treasury Department is lawless and wrong and frightening for the American people. Elon Musk should not have access to your data, to the payment systems, and what is going on.
All right, there you go. Well done, Haley Stevens. And here is that, said Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries at a Democratic press conference yesterday.
To force Republicans to include this, or what's the avenue there?
Congress has the power of the purse, and when Congress allocates funding in the best interest of the American people, the Constitution requires that funding be spent by the President and the administration. The Constitution requires the President has a responsibility to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Spending agreements passed through the appropriations process are law. And when those laws are violated, the Constitution is being violated, which is why there has been a flurry of righteous litigation that has been unleashed, and that will continue. It's an all-hands-on-deck effort. Leader Schumer made that clear. All-hands-on-deck effort.
Does that mean you'll be taking the weekend off or not? Because I think Elon's going to put out another tweet that says he was working all night, all weekend. He could have been at parties. Remember that from last weekend? Could have been at parties, but I was here destroying America or something like that. Okay, well, there you go. Now, finally, an evergreen clip from Jon Stewart explaining the political paradigm in the United States of America. This is, I'm not sure when this is from, but it's relevant, well, always.
If they want to in any way confront what's really going on, the problems in this country is you have one party in America whose sole purpose is to freeze the government and to not fix any of the problems that are associated with it. They have a great game going, which is government sucks and can't get the job done. And then they can sit as an impediment to that government and point to their destruction as evidence of their thesis. It's a great tautology, and it's, for whatever you want to say about the Democrats, maybe they're feckless, maybe they focus too much on identity politics, or they're not fiscally responsible. At least they're fucking trying.
Well, yeah, that, and they are more fiscally responsible than Republicans. Republicans have won that messaging war long ago to act like they are the fiscally responsible party. They are not. They are not. Democrats spend money and raise the taxes to pay for it, and Republicans spend the exact same, if not way more money on health care and defense, and they cut spending, which doesn't pay for it and creates budget deficits and adds to the national debt. Okay, well, Jon Stewart really bending over backwards to give him that one, but still, I think well said. And I got to share this with you, and it does have a clip of Trump's voice in it from the prayer breakfast, I think, the other day, yesterday. It's very brief, but the whole thing is illustrative of how he lies and how he behaves. So Trump, talking with Senator Tommy Tuberville in the audience there, says that Tuberville coached Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs superstar quarterback who's playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. He didn't. And now here's Trump, regrettably, for about 20 seconds, then Tuberville, then Patrick Mahomes on The Truth.
Tommy Tuberville, a great coach. You know, his quarterback was named Mahomes. He was a great college coach. And I said, how good was he? He said, you don't want to know how good. He made me into a great coach. He's pretty good quarterback, right?
One might just suggest that Trump was mistaken, that he thought that Patrick Mahomes was coached by Tuberville. But no, he actually made up a conversation, because that's what he does. He made up a conversation between him and Tommy Tuberville, where Tuberville said to him, yeah, Patrick Mahomes made me a great coach.
Last question. So does this mean, since you used to coach Patrick Mahomes, that you're rooting for the Chiefs at the big game this Sunday?
Well, I never even coached him. What happened is I recruited him, and then I left and went to another school. But I've got to be very good friends with him.
So how did he make you a good coach? Because if you never coached him, how did he make you a good coach? By recruiting him, you somehow... or you became friends with him and he made you a better coach? Anyway, here is Patrick Mahomes settling all of this.
He did not recruit me at the time, so I don't remember if I ever got to meet him or not.
And scene. That's how the art of the lie comes together. You hear it all in just that succinct series of 3 clips. And now here is Leonardo DiCaprio playing an astronomer in the movie Don't Look Up, explaining how we all feel anytime we hear or see Trump with his lies. The film, of course, tells a story of these astronomers attempting to warn humanity about an approaching comet that will destroy human civilization. The president just ignoring it or lying about it. And this is that scene. And I feel it really captures both our rage and our fear. And I think I might be playing it more and more.
The President of the United States is fucking lying. Look, I'm just like all of you. I hope to God that this president knows what she's doing. I hope she's got us all taken care of. But the truth is, I think his whole administration has completely lost their fucking mind. And I think we're all gonna die.
I felt when I saw that was going around yesterday. And I was just like, oh, this is perfect. I like that movie, by the way. All right. Well, that's it. That's all I've got for you in the first segments of the show. Your good stuff, the headlines, and the clips brought to you by you. I cannot do it without you. It's a lot of work each and every day to put a show together all on my own. That's right. I book the guests because I know so many people and I have the credibility to get them on. Do the interviews. I prep for the interviews. I edit them. I post them. I promote them. It is a lot of work each and every day. So please sign up for a paid subscription if you haven't already. Welcome to new subscribers. Welcome back to old subscribers that have returned to the show and the community. We are very happy to have you. You're always welcome here at our community. Join us anytime on the Discord platform as well. Now it's time to get to my first guest. He is the co-founder and executive director of Indivisible, which is an amazing organization, nonprofit that is fighting to save our democracy and has been for a long time. He served as Associate Director of Federal Policy for Prosperity Now, which is a national anti-poverty nonprofit. That's what he did last. He's been working on anti-poverty. He worked also in government. He's the Deputy Policy Director for a congressman from Texas named Lloyd Doggett, who's a Democrat. And he did a lot more. He actually also went to Princeton, where he got a master's in public affairs. So he's a real smart guy. He's been published in all the major news outlets, interviewed by all of the major news outlets. He was ranked number 2 on Politico's 50 top thinkers, doers, and visionaries transforming American politics. And we're very happy to have him here joining us to inspire us, to educate us, to enlighten us here on Stand Up. And I'm sure he'll be back. Here's my conversation with Ezra Levin. I know. Very excited to have you here. You're doing great work. You've done great work. You're back doing good work again, unfortunately. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, yeah. I think I speak for lots of folks around the country when I say I can't believe we have to do this shit again.
Yeah, just on that, how are you dealing with it? You're a real smart, educated guy who basically lives this work, the kind of how I do. And I find myself talking with folks a lot about how to daily deal with your own emotions and your own feelings so that you can get back and do the work. Do you have a practice? Do you have advice for us as we go through this seemingly very static anxiety attack?
The single best thing that I found is not to limit how you live through this moment to consuming information. That is the best way to stay in a state of fear and depression and anxiety. The thing that keeps me going is actually talking to real people on the ground who are organizing and doing stuff in the real world. That is what calms my nerves, because if all you're doing is seeing this catastrophe unfurl in front of you, it makes you feel powerless, and it makes you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. The best thing you can do is something about it, and that means organizing locally with fellow pro-democracy Americans in your community.
That's right, and that's what your organization has done as well, if not better than almost anybody since the first Trump administration. And so what do you think the difference is in terms of the timing, the situation, the framing of where we were as a country then, pre-COVID, and now after everything we've seen him go through, and you're back with your organization and your set of tools and resources to help us organize, which has been very effective in the past, but things seem different, and I'm not sure the same solutions are going to work. It's a different situation. Thoughts?
Yeah, some things are different. Look, they're better prepared than they were back in 2016, 2017. Trump bumbled into office. I think he was surprised that he won the election. They had a Republican Party that was skeptical of him, that was actually ready to push back. That is not the modern day Republican Party. The Republican Party today is a MAGA party. They came in with a 900-plus page document called Project 2025, which is a step-by-step guide to how they are governing right now. If you want to know what they're going to do next, read Project 2025. They're ready for it. They did not have that in 2017. Now, here's what hasn't changed. We still live in a democratic republic. The basis for how this country governs comes down to people. That's still true. Individual members of Congress, individual elected officials, they still wake up every morning. This Thursday morning, they woke up thinking, what? How am I going to get reelected? That is true now. It was true last year. It was true 100 years ago. That's how elected officials work, which means if you're a rich person or a famous person, you have individual power. But if you're a normal person, what that means is that if you organize locally, you can actually influence your elected official. That was true in 2017. It was true now. And that is not, look, I'm a former congressional staffer. I'm a cynical political observer because of that. This is not starry-eyed idealism saying this. If you organize locally, you can influence these politicians' behavior. And we've seen that even over the course of the last 2 weeks. Trump backed off of the OMB freeze. He backed off of tariffs. He's going to back off of more stuff. We're not going to win everything. We didn't win everything in 2017, but we can slow things down, build up public pressure, and ultimately fracture their coalition.
Yeah, all great. But what does organize locally mean? One problem I see people have, especially people who are kind of new to activism, new to any movement, I made this mistake myself, was tried to create our own thing specific to our town and our community. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. What I do think, though, however, is often there are organizations with mailing lists with people in your town. You might not agree on every single thing, but organizing with previously created organizations that have some momentum and resources and connections is probably the first place at least to look. What do you think?
You know, I'm mixed on that. I mean, I have no problem with somebody starting something new in their own community. In November of last year, after the election, we had more local indivisible groups start than in any month since 2017. In December, we beat the number from November. In January, we beat the number from December. I think a healthy part of organizing is organizing in coalition. You should be reaching out to the folks who are defending trans kids who are under attack, who are defending immigrants and refugees who are under attack, who are defending abortion rights, et cetera. There are good organizations out there. There are good community-based organizations that are out there. But we actually need a lot of folks who are organizing their own community. This doesn't need to be some fancy new nonprofit that you start in your community. I'm talking about get your friends and family members and like-minded coworkers together and say, hey, what are we going to do about this? Where do we have leverage? Yeah. Does our member of Congress listen to us? Does our senator listen to us? Does our mayor listen to us? Does our dog catcher listen to us? Identify where you have leverage, get folks together, focus your energy there. That the way we do this is not by any one person or one group solving this problem. It's by all of us recognizing that democracy is under threat and this is a participatory sport. We got to get in it. And that doesn't just mean following. You should not be waiting for some other brilliant leader to tap you on the shoulder and say, go in that direction. They're not out there. I'm telling you, I'm in the rooms where those supposedly brilliant leaders are, and they're asking, what are we going to do? They're looking for pressure and leadership from the grassroots, and everybody listening to this has an opportunity to be one of those leaders. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Great advice. I'm feeling inspired. This is awesome. And you have to wonder, though, if people are afraid to put it out there. I mean, you have been doing this for a long time. You're Jewish. You know the history. You've seen the threats. I'm sure you've gotten so many, and I'm sure they're coming fast and hard. I have heard all of it myself. What do you tell people who are afraid, to come out and get organized and protest at their capital, et cetera? I wouldn't sugarcoat it. I think that fear is well-founded. That's part of the authoritarian playbook. In the new guide that we put out a week after the election, we have a whole section on this. I mean, the bottom line is we are all individually going to have to decide what level of risk we're willing to take on. That is true. And also a basic way that you resist authoritarianism is through strength in numbers. If they successfully cow us into submission, they successfully convince us that we need to, for our own safety and security, not speak up, they will win. And so there is this really tricky dynamic that we're all confronting right now, which is the threat is real. And I don't want to pretend it's not real. And I can't tell people to take on risks that they're not comfortable taking on. And also, we need a lot of courage in this country right now. And I see that courage is contagious. And the chicken or egg problem is we need people to be courageous. So there's more courageous people. So it takes less courage to stand up.
Right.
But we need you, if you are comfortable taking on risk, to take on that risk so that more people will see that and take on risks themselves.
And if you're not willing to put yourself out there, there's all kinds of things you can do anonymously from the privacy. You can never leave your homes now more than ever and create big impact, right?
You can somewhat, but I'm not going to lie. It's going to take in-person action. Calls are not enough. Emails are not enough. Social media is not enough. Look, members of Congress respond not just to the message, they respond to the medium. And you send one message if you send an email in or you post something to Blue Sky. That's fine. That's good. It's not worthless. But what I like seeing out there right now, we have 250 events that have been registered, in-person district office visits at senators' offices. I'm seeing crowds around the block at Tom Tillis's office, or major crowds at Susan Collins' office, or at Democratic offices, yelling at them to actually start fighting back. That's good. That's important. And that in-person action is that's what's making members of Congress call me saying, why is everybody yelling at me? How can we get them to stop? It's because they're taking note of the amount of energy.
You worked inside the Capitol. You're outside the Capitol now as an activist for a long time. You know that these pressures historically worked, but make the case that they're still working, because it seems like, I mean, a lot of us are worried. I'm never really irrational, but when you talk about they wake up in the morning, they think about their next election. A lot of us are worried there might not be another election. Like, we're worried about getting through the week without the Social Security system turning off or planes falling from the sky, Ezra. So what's the best thing that is going to work imminently, and what if they don't care because they're not worried about their next reelection for once?
I think those are all reasonable fears, and there is no push this button and solve everything. That doesn't
I want
exist.
The button.
I want that damn button too, and you know what? That's what Donald Trump thinks he has. That's why he's busting through our basic structure of government to undermine the separation of powers in our Constitution, because he wants that too. Instead, we have something that's messy and chaotic and inefficient. It's called democracy. And the way democracy works is a lot of people get pissed off and they tell their representative, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And if enough of them do that, the representatives say, oh, shoot, I've got to change what I'm doing. But we got to be smart about this. It's not enough just to yell and chant. That's not enough. It's not enough to just say even phrases like shut down the Senate. What does that mean, shut down the Senate?
Right.
I don't want Chuck Schumer giving a speech to a crowd saying, I'm with you, we're going to fight. That does nobody any good. I want him using the power he has, which means those of us who are pushing need to understand the power that he has. So what power do Senate Democrats actually have? Yeah, they can give speeches. I like a good speech. I like a good chant. That's not enough. They can withhold unanimous consent to slow down the work in the Senate. The Senate operates on this collegial system of everybody agrees, we're going to get along, we're going to go along. Any individual senator can say, nope, I don't consent. You got to spend time debating me to actually open up the day. Everybody should be doing that every single day. The senators can say, I'm not voting for a single Trump nominee until this Elon Musk-driven coup of the Treasury is over. Senators can say, hey, I'm looking around this chamber. There isn't enough for a quorum. Where are all my colleagues? I think they need to come in. Any senator can call for a quorum, and these septuagenarian and octogenarians who have been in office for several decades have to hobble on over from their offices and go into the Senate chamber. It's a pain in the butt for the majority. It's also a pain in the butt for the minority. That's why they don't often do it. I'm sorry. Are we living through a coup or aren't we? Are we living through a national constitutional crisis or aren't we? Those are the specific, boring, nerdy, technical, procedural tools, but that's what power is. That's what power is. And we have to demand that they use that power, and then we have to hold them accountable when they don't. The reason why we're seeing such frantic behavior from House Democrats and Senate Democrats right now is because they're feeling the pressure. It is changing. I'm not telling you about something that might someday have impact. I'm telling you, I'm hearing from offices right now, Ezra, you need to raise the temperature more. My boss needs to hear more from you because he's still making some political calculations that aren't in line with a unified opposition.
Wow, that's how they talk to you?
Some of them, the ones who are on our side.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. I like to hear that I think that's enlightening and inspiring for people to hear, to know that you're in contact with these folks and that you know what's working, and that's what you're telling us what's working. And you're also suggesting, I know, to take a page from Mitch McConnell's playbook from when President Obama, who I'm old enough to have covered when this strategy was employed. What should Democrats do that the 2008-ish Senate Republicans led by a young, spry Mitch McConnell did?
What an inspiration that guy is, isn't he?
He's really something.
I was a House staffer in 2009. We had a huge majority in the House. We had a near and temporarily supermajority in the Senate. Barack Obama was fabulously popular. He was pushing forward a universal health care bill. And in response to that, you know what Mitch McConnell didn't do? He was Senate Minority Leader. You know what he didn't do? He didn't say, I'm in the minority. I'm powerless. What do you want me to do? The Democrats have all the power. Can you imagine Mitch McConnell saying, what do you want me to do? I'm in the minority. Of course not. Mitch McConnell would never say that. Mitch McConnell circulated with his Senate colleagues. He circulated a memo detailing some of the things I just said, all the ways that the Senate minority has power, maybe not to win, but sure as hell they can gum up the works. They can slow things down. They can allow public pressure to build. That's how he approached a popularly elected president with a popular agenda, Barack Obama. That's how Mitch McConnell approached him.
Far more popularly elected.
We've got a senile old would-be authoritarian in office with the barest possible majorities in Congress, and Senate Democrats are rolling over and playing dead. What on earth are we doing here? Take some inspiration from Mitch McConnell and fight back.
You know, and also,
I will say, I'm not just here to yell about Senate Democrats. They I think were asleep at the wheel as of a couple weeks ago. We've seen some signs of life. They were holding the floor all last night. I applaud them for that. They are holding the floor to shine a light on this villain, Russell Vought, who's being nominated to lead the Office of Management and Budget. He's the human embodiment of Project 2025, really bad guy. And they're trying to shine a light. They're using some of the power they got. That's good. Step in the right direction. There's more they can do, but we should cheer them when they are doing good things. Politicians love to be thanked. Let's thank them when they do the right thing, and let's point out when they're not doing the right thing.
So specifically, what are you most concerned about? What do you think Senate Democrats, should be most concerned about? Because they have really fled the zone, and it's very, very effective because all of the things that they're doing are really scary. I mean, Elon Musk having the keys to the Treasury and handing them to some young kid who's a sycophant of his, like some Hitler youth kid in Treasury with all of our information. That's one thing. But canceling USAID means babies are going to die today. And now they're going to go destroy the Department of Education. Like, it would seem that hour to hour, as long as there is access, as long as Elon has access, he can take and destroy minute to minute, second to second, downloading information. It seems imminent, and I just don't know what can possibly be done to get that dude on a plane and sent to somewhere else where he can wreak havoc.
I think all of this, there's so much. And like you said, Steve Bannon flooding the zone. They're trying to just push so much out there that it's impossible to focus on anything in particular.
We're going to build a mall in Gaza. I mean, that took up a lot of attention. Meanwhile, downloading and uploading.
That's right. The fundamental thing that I'm worried about is, our system of government is based on this idea of separation of powers. It's based on the idea in Article 1 of the Constitution that Congress has the power of the purse, that the executive branch is supposed to implement the laws that Congress passes. And what we see from this president, it's not Reagan-esque, let's shrink government. I'm not a Reagan fan. I think he was a bad guy too. But it's not just conservatism. That's not what this is. This is right-wing reactionary government. This is an attempt to take us back before the Great Society of LBJ, before the New Deal of FDR. God, he wants to take us back to the 19th century. We passed civil service reform in the 1880s to allow us to have an administrative state that could administer a program like Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid or food stamps or Meals on Wheels or Head Start.
Kids were working in coal mines. Kids. This guy came on and told me about that, and he said they were like 8. And I go, well, let me look up. How old were they? And I looked it up. They were 8.
That is the era when America was great, and they are wanting to take us back to that era, and they're systematically doing it. So I'm worried about a lot of the specifics here. I'm worried about the human harm that is currently underway and that will come. But fundamentally, I'm worried about the destruction of the very basis of our American republic. And so then I'm saying those words. You don't have to listen to me. Timothy Snyder, expert in authoritarianism, says it's a coup. Heather Cox Richardson, a brilliant historian as well, says this is the most dangerous period in American history. Full stop. So if you believe that, and if you believe some of the words coming out of the mouths of members of Congress who are on our side purportedly, then it forces you to ask the question, okay, so what? What are we going to do? What tools are we using? How is this just moving forward as politics as usual? So we've talked a little bit about what the Senate minority can do. There is also going to be a fight over funding in March. In about a month, funding for the government is going to run out. So big question, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to use that leverage? They need Democratic votes. What are we going to demand? And how much are we willing to shut everything down in order to get what we want? We need to play procedural hardball. We need to play legislative hardball to stop this, because if we don't, they're going to succeed. They're going to roll right over us.
And that deadline is, I keep thinking about that. What should the strategy be? But as you and I both know, it's like, what about between now and that deadline? What kind of damage will get done? And I just don't know. Well, I guess another important question is, as we're doing the work, how do we get people who aren't in the game? How do we fight apathy? How do we get people who aren't politically engaged, whatever those demographics, what's working to get them as engaged and as interested and as concerned as we are right now to go actually do something?
So I think of this as being, there are two populations out there that I think of my target audience.
Right.
One is the target audience of people who would take action, who would actually, they would call their member of Congress, they would write an op-ed, they would join a local Indivisible group or Move On Buddies or Working Family, whatever. They organize locally however they might and start applying power in some way. That's like an engaged, more activist-oriented audience, right? Then, separate from that, there is an audience of people who aren't going to do that. There are people who didn't vote at all, or maybe they voted for Donald Trump because they wanted lower egg prices or lower bread prices. We need all of those people as part of our coalition as we head into elections. The special election for the election coming up for Wisconsin Supreme Court, the off-year elections in Virginia and New Jersey, the special elections to replace members of Congress. We need those people on our side too. Those are two different audiences that are going to respond to two different messages, right? For the first audience, they need to understand that what they're doing is impactful and not a total goddamn waste of time. They need to understand why is it important to actually organize and what can you hope to achieve through it. That's what we're trying to do right now, to explain, hey, here's how your member of Congress thinks. Here's how your elected officials thinks. Here's what's possible to get your Democratic trifecta if you live in a California or in Illinois or Washington or in Oregon. Here's what they could do to go on offense. We want them to not just raise their fist and post it to social media. I don't care about that. That's not the goal. We want them to have impact, and we want them to understand how what they do contributes to that impact. That's for the audience that could take action now.
Right.
For the audience that we need to be part of our voting coalition, our job is to welcome them in, not say, hey, I told you so. What did you think you were going to get? You voted for Donald Trump? Shame on you. You're getting exactly what you deserve. Nuh-uh.
That doesn't work.
We have to welcome them into our coalition. Yes, you are right to feel betrayed. You are right to feel disappointed. He is not lowering the price of anything. He is coming after your rights. He is engaging in a massive federal overreach. Welcome to our side. We might not agree on how to govern. We might not agree on everything. We agree on no. We agree on saying no. Welcome to our side.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to use all of that advice, everything that you're sharing and giving right now, and encourage people to join Indivisible. You got chapters in every state in the country. And, what else do you want to tell people that they can do right now today? We're talking on Thursday morning Another
thing Timothy Snyder says, they want you to be alone. That's not how this works. Nobody's going to fix this on their own. The place where this starts is reaching out to members of your community. Would love if you join or start an Indivisible group. It doesn't have to be that, though. Figure out the community that makes sense to you and start connecting with real people in real life, physically, in person, and strategizing about how you can fight back. Nobody is going to lead this for you. I want to be clear. There is no knight riding man on a horse that's going to lead the charge and suddenly you can just follow them. It is being driven by people like you who didn't think that they needed to be leaders in this space, but because they were frustrated by the vacuum of leadership out there, they raised their hand and they started something. That is what is driving this right now. It is what is changing what's politically possible. I'm not here to tell you everything's going to be okay. Everything's not going to be okay.
Too late.
But it's too late. There's a lot of damage that's been done and will be done, but game isn't over. The game is not over. We need to get in the game.
To the person listening or watching this, you are the one. You're the one. Come on over. Join us and do something. It makes you feel real good. I mean, the last quick question is a personal one. I mean, I read up on you. I prepared to talk to you. I know a lot about your background, your education, where you've worked and all that. But I mean, I really sense your passion, and I like to think that I share it and have for my whole career and my life. And I just want to know what motivates you. Who touched you? What happened to you as a child? Are you the son of civil rights, educators? Did you have an internship here? I did read that you worked, in housing and with, fighting poverty and hunger, I think in Northern California. So, I mean, what is it that motivates you? Why do you keep doing this?
So I don't come from a political background. My dad was a musician. My mom was in and out of work when I was growing up. A very, loving household, but didn't have health insurance growing up. My mom had a medical accident. She's okay now. Mishap, medical malpractice, almost went bankrupt, had to sue to avoid bankruptcy. It was a, total cluster, as many people have experienced.
Sure.
And I think that turned me on to being concerned about, well, what are the systems around us? Worked on anti-poverty policy. I worked on homelessness issues in the Bay Area and became very frustrated with the tools available to us. It became clear that the problems we were facing could not just be fixed at the local level. There were major decisions being made at the national level, which is why I went to work in Congress. And pretty soon after working in Congress, became pretty frustrated that the system was just not set up to respond to the will of the people. We didn't need one more report or one more analysis to say, here's how we fix poverty. Here's how we actually improve education. Here's issues. We knew how to do that. It's right in front of us. What we needed was people power. We needed people to actually demand that the system itself change. So if there's one thing that keeps me going right now, it's seeing folks organize on the ground and actually build that power. And if there's another thing that keeps me going, it's just seeing these fascist clowns, these malicious Muppets who are in charge trying to do as much damage as they can and knowing we can beat them. We've beat them before and we can again. It just takes organizing.
Well done, sir. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your work, and I'd love to have you come back, talk to our larger group, or anytime to give us updates, inspiration, ideas. Appreciate you.
Would love it. Yeah, let's talk again.
There he goes. Ezra Levin, indivisible.org. Find your local chapter right now. I'm having a meeting. I'm going to a meeting on Monday here where I live in Rockland County, New York. Looking forward to seeing some of my activist friends locally that I haven't seen them in a minute. All right, Ezra Levin, thank you very much for joining us. And now it's time to get to one of our all-time favorite guests to talk to, Ophira Eisenberg. We start the conversation with some parenting. Of course, she's the host of Parenting is a Joke, and I really liked this part of the conversation, a bit of departure from all of the crazy news that's happening, but then we do get into it, get her perspective as a Canadian on all things and so much more. We love Ophira. She's going to join us at PODJAM in March. You should listen to her podcast, Parenting is a Joke. I know many of you do, but if you haven't, it's real good. Support her on social media and see her if you get the opportunity to see her performing live. She's one of the funniest stand-up comedians working today. You can learn more about her at her website, OphiraEisenberg.com, and just look at the show notes for her and every guest for this show. And real quick, just a little clip from the theme song from Gareth Sever for Ophira. We love this.
Ophira, Ophira, it's Ophira.
It's been a long, way too long.
The angels brought me in. The angels singing at the end of that clip brought me in.
You're very busy. You're the busiest. You're working so much, but you did take a vacation. Like you did go to like South America. I feel like I haven't even talked to you since then.
Oh, yeah.
Right? How was that? You had a family vacation with how old is your son now?
Well, he was 8 when we did that trip to Peru, but he's now 9. But yeah, we went and hiked Machu Picchu with a 8-year-old, and trust me, along the way, that's a pretty arduous hike. And along the way, you have these little places where you can rest and in the shade because you're on the side of this mountain and it's just oppressive, the sun and the heat. And every single time a bunch of adults panting for air in the thin air of the high altitudes would go, "You brought a kid on this?" And by about the third one, I was like, are we terrible parents? Because we brought a kid on this.
How did he do? Was it worth it? Do you think it was worth bringing a kid on this?
Yeah, I will tell you two things which are interesting. One, so he did it. He climbed up this mountain that was pretty intense, 8-hour hike up. We did that version of it because you can do a few different versions. Almost no problem. He's saying a lot of the way, we are the champions, which I was like, tone it down because some people are not having an easy time of this, okay?
Some of these people are definitely not champions.
Like, relax. But I made a very big mistake as a parent, which I did not show him the ruins of Machu Picchu before, so he did not know what he was hiking towards. And when we got to the top, after all people going like, oh, you're doing Machu Picchu, I think in his head it was going to be not ancient ruins. The problem was when we got to the top, Pete, the payoff was ancient ruins. It was not Disney World, Peru.
Right.
It wasn't Dora the Explorer land or whatever.
Well, but you get to zip line down, right?
No.
Oh, no. Then you have to climb down as well?
It's a bus. You could climb, but it's a bus. So that was a bit of a meltdown. So I learned that. But, it's interesting. We always talk about like kids' memories, what they remember, what they don't, and how you can, this incredible trip, how many times do we say trip of a lifetime for him, but a 8-year-old can't take that in. But recently I was talking about taking him on, we went for a little weekend trip to Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Just Washington, D.C. And now when we travel like this one, the first question my son asks is, can you drink the water there? Because you can't drink the water. I mean, you can, but you will probably get sick in Peru. They even tell you, they say quiet showers, no talking in the shower. You have to, all of your water has to be
So his standard was hilariously set by some ancient South American culture or water system.
The water system. Yeah, a water system that is not a developed water system. So, which was it? I started to say to him, Pete, no, come on, in all of America you can drink. And then I stopped myself and said, many places in America you can drink the water.
Yeah, I think I used to say all the time that, as a way to criticize people who are constantly buying bottled water, especially the little ones. One thing if you get the giant thing for the family or whatever, a month for yourself. But the water, I feel like it might be getting worse in a lot of places. And that's obviously an issue, a lack of infrastructure investment, but we'll be fine. But obviously in impoverished areas and places like Flint and Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bad.
So anyways, we did this incredible trip. He had to try all this food that he didn't like. He had to be in thin air. He had to sleep in hotels. It was a nice trip too. It's not like there was a night of glamping, which was a total meltdown. But in general, I'm glad I did it. That's how memory works, doesn't it?
And the DC trip was a fun thing too, right? I mean, you had texted me, you're like, I don't know if I should be going down there right now. I heard your son got a job with Doge. He's actually one of the young people looking through the Treasury Department right now, I think.
That's right. They wanted cheap labor and they got it.
He's very smart. He's working for Elon Musk.
We actually walked in front of the Federal Department of Libraries. Huh. And my son said, can I go in and request some books that I never can find? And I was like, I think that would be hilarious. But it was Lunar New Year, so it was closed.
Oh, well, that makes total sense, of course. By the way, that building is being turned into, it's going to be a Tesla factory now. So
yeah, right, exactly. When the back of it, the library part of it is now a golf course.
Oh, God. Well, listen, before we get to all the other issues happening and your view as a Canadian on the trade war, just another, you're,
oh my God.
You're obviously the host of Parenting is a Joke. And just, I've been thinking a lot about my daughters being now 17 and 20 and looking, at what point do you evaluate how you did as a parent and how they're doing, as in this case,
tell me,
adults. And I feel ready to talk about all of it. Like I want to write the book that I've been wanting to write forever about raising daughters for men specifically. But I do feel like, we obviously got really lucky with all kinds of things around health and resources and money and privilege and all that. But I mean, and we skated through a lot of things like around body image disorders that they didn't go, even though they were dancers, or other issues around confidence and social status. Lots of problems, obviously, that they have had and have. But both my daughters, I feel so lucky and fortunate with how great they've turned out and how great our relationships with them are. And I'm ready to tell you why.
Please help me. Because I got to tell you, I don't know who I'm raising. For example, yesterday I picked up my son and he was like, well, there's an entire class that is trying to beat me up. So it was a great day. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Do I need to talk to a teacher? Do I need to talk to a parent? Who's this kid getting involved? And he was like, no. He was like, this kid, I keep, we have a thing that he tried to organize his class to beat me up. And he goes, because Mom, you can convince people to do anything. You just tell them like something that sounds cool and people just jump on. I mean, it is so easy to manipulate people. I was like, okay, that's scary that you just said that at 9-1. And then he goes, but anyways, that kid's not going to bother me. Or if he does, whatever. He goes, I kind of respect him for getting everyone on his side to do that. He's a little like me. And I was like, are you a mob boss? Who talks like that?
He sounds very smart. He sounds like I did. He would not say that probably to anybody but his mom. You're so close with him, but that's a self-protection psychology. I totally resonate with what he's saying. Oh, good. Okay, and he uses the words manipulate and so on, whatever. But what he means is building relationships with people and getting people to like him and so that he can protect himself from any kind of physical violence or just ridicule. I think he sounds smart. Okay. As long as he's not, using that to hurt somebody or to manipulate or lie about somebody. But it sounds like he's like, you know what, you got to skate through some way and, pick your battles and make your friends. But man, that resonates with me. He sounds like I did.
Okay. Well, then I was a little bit like this, it sounds like you're using your powers for evil, not good. That's what I heard.
What size is he compared to the other boys?
He's a little shorter.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's so funny. That's right where you went.
Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. As a smaller end of boys, you got to do something or you're drowning. Or you're getting beat up, or you're getting ridiculed. I got called everything. That was the first thing I ever dealt with, was being way smaller than everybody else. It started in first, second grade. They started calling me shrimp.
Yeah. Oh, at least it's shrimp. That's the cutest of versions.
Well, it got a lot worse from there. But immediately went home and talked to my parents about it. And my mom told me the greatest single piece of advice. And my dad did too. My mom said, just tell them you know. I go, what do you mean? She's like, just tell them that you're small. I was like, what is that going to do? And she goes, you'll see. And so the kids were calling me shrimp, and I was like, yes, I am the smallest, tiniest. And they're like, aren't you bothered by what we're saying? No, I am in fact small. And my dad told me, just make friends with the biggest kid in class. And I did that from that day in second grade all the way till today in every room I'm in. Smart.
That's great. That's great. I gave no advice, so that's on me.
No, it's not, because the best parenting, I feel like what I'm prepared to say is our generation of parents is trying very, very hard to be good and to not screw your kid up. And we're doing our best. And that's all you can ask.
Yeah. I said basically, do you want me to get involved? And he said, not yet. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. Almost never get involved, I think. I can think of very few instances where I got involved. And that's because someone gave me that advice. Someone gave me advice one night, an older parent, when our kids were first in school, and whatever you do, if your kid has a problem with another kid, never approach another parent. And I was like, why not? I was like, why not? I was like, I'm absolutely going to say and they're like, no, I'm telling you no. And I go, why? And they started explaining to me what happens and how you end up destroying everything backfires and you end up ruining the relationship. And I was like, oh my God, thank you for that advice. Cause I would have definitely been that dad.
I have talked my husband off of that particular topic.
Good.
Because I'm like, no one is going to hear, hey, this is what your son is doing to my kid. And they're just going to defend. That's the first.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, you're wrong. And how dare you? Because that's, I mean, yeah.
And
I know.
I think you're also taking that opportunity. It sounds like Lucas it's exactly what he's saying. He's like, not yet, Mom. Let me try to handle my business. And if I can, I got to pull the ripcord and I got to call you in. I got to call backup. But let your kids, as much as they can, fight their own battles and navigate their problems, because you're not going to be there for most of them. You know, you don't want to be, you know, too involved in solving their problems certainly with other kids. Oh my God.
But I will say I did pierce the barrier, and I did one smart thing, which is lucky. My kid is smart and he's excelling academically. And the teacher told me that sometimes she feels like she can't engage him enough. And I said, well, there's probably got a bunch of jobs in the classroom, right? Photocopying, running stuff down to the office, da da da. She goes, yeah. I go, give all of those jobs to him, all of them.
Great.
And so he recently told me, he was just like, yeah, I mean, all day long, I have to do errands for my teacher. I'm like, great.
But you don't tell him that No. That's great. No, I think that's really good because you know your kid better than the teacher does. And also the teacher worries about, you know, maybe going a little too hard on the kid, especially with all these parents that get so defensive. Oh, I told my daughter's teachers, I was like, no, you need to, if she does that, you need to give it right back to her. You know, let her, she can handle herself. I give you full permission, whatever happens. And Julia, I mean, it was a Julia thing, and it's been great, you know, but that's smart. That's, you know, your kid, tell the people that are with your kid all day long, this is probably what he's looking for. This will help. I know, you know.
Yeah. Give him some responsibility, give him some activity. So yeah. Although yesterday when he brought home his math homework, the toner had clearly run out of the printer. So the last two questions I couldn't read. And I go, oh my God, the last two questions. And he goes, yeah, they're probably all like that because I printed those.
You're doing great. You're doing great. I mean, you are, I don't know if I'm sure you question the time that you get and feel guilty when you're on the road and stuff, but you also are with him, it seems like, a lot. And the time that you're with him is very quality. You're very involved.
I try.
And I think that you're doing a great job. And he's so lucky to have both you and your husband the way that you are. But you'll see. He already sounds so, I can't wait to meet him. I mean, I think he's going to be really successful if that's the way he is right now, the way you talk about him. Plus, you're so smart and funny. Like, you think he doesn't pick up on that? I don't know your husband, but he's picking up on all of the things that you guys are and taking what he likes, right?
I hope so. I mean, you know, I also, you'll appreciate this.
I saw him do that bit you do about your husband sending dick pics. I thought that was too far, but.
Well, he did win the talent night at school, but.
Did he?
No, he didn't. That would be great with a dick pic joke.
I don't know if it was a different talent. I thought maybe.
No, they don't have a talent.
What were you going to say before I interrupted with my bit?
When we were in DC, you know, obviously we're traveling together, and when he wants to go to the bathroom, I give him the option: do you want to go in the men's by yourself, and I'll wait outside, or do you want to come with me into the women's? So sometimes he'll be like, "I'll just come with you." And he noticed that there was tampons and pads in a vending thing for 25 cents in one of and he knows what those are because he's asked me before. And he said, it's like the slight misuse of words, but I appreciate it. He goes, 25 cents? So you're telling me they're extorting money from you because you're a woman?
Wow. That is really, really, I don't even know how he would possibly pick up on that. I guess, wow. How did he figure that out?
Well, I mean, so he knows that there's bleeding involved, so he thinks it's pain. And he was like, why would you charge anyone for anything if they were in pain?
Well,
and I said, this is the basis of medical insurance problems. Why would you charge anyone for anything if they're in pain? Why wouldn't you just help them?
By the way, I mean, he sounds extremely, I don't know, is he reading some kind of feminist manifesto you have lying around?
No, but I love the use of the word extortion.
Yeah, well, it's fine. I mean, it's close in a weird, it's not that far off. But yes, the fact that he's using that word at all at 10
so crazy.
Doesn't make any sense. I don't know where he got it. You should have. That's all you should have focused on. The other day, I'm with Ava, 20, and she's had really bad cramps, her period, and I just started talking with her about it. I go, you know what? I just that happens every month, and to varying degrees with different women, and so on. But like, I haven't had a stomach ache for months. Like, I don't really get sick. Or when I was younger, growing up when I was your age, like, I never had those issues. And it's like every month you can count on this lasting sometimes like weeks. Obviously, it's different for everybody, even if it's just days. And it's like seems really like painful.
Brutal.
The cramps could be really bad, obviously. Again, it's on a degree, a spectrum, I get it. But like, it just says a lot about one of the big differences between men and women. And I know it's the most obvious observation in the world, but maybe it was because I was talking about it with my daughter, but
it felt closer to you. I'm sure it felt very closer to you because you were like, oh my God, I would do anything to help my daughter not be in pain. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I once hiked a mile to get Val some Midol in the middle of the night when I was doing a gig in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. I mean, I know that And then I realized the drugstore was another half mile, and I turned around and she got nothing. But I said it was
I had a drink. I said I went to a bar.
I had a drink, and I brought home some Mentos and told her they were Midol, and so I just thought it was an interesting thing that men don't suffer from that kind of physical pain on a monthly basis, and then still complain about. Women's emotions and women are weak and all that. I was thinking along those lines, I guess. It's like, you have to put up with so much more than we do. You really, and I don't know. It just is a weird.
I luckily have not, I have plenty of problems, but I never experienced a lot of cramps. But I have met women and talking to women recently who have said like the greatest thing that ever happened to them was, for whatever reason that they stopped having a period, where it was menopause or they had to take a drug
because they had a bad period. So whatever stopped it was relief. Yeah.
They were like, the greatest day of my life, basically.
I mean, it's not like men don't deal with different kinds of chronic pain or can't have pain. I'm not saying that, but it's just like, it's a biological guarantee.
Right.
So what does that mean? What has that done to us and society?
To just endure, and that's it. And just endure it. There you go.
Extortion. We're going to erase all those DEI things and not talk about the differences between men and women. It's going to be all about meritocracy. And let's start there. Because before we get to Canada, you can speak to this issue as well as anybody, as a very successful woman in your business, in your line of work, in comedy, and all the type of work that you've done in radio and all of it. There's way more opportunity for men. Way more. Like, I don't know what multiples of what factor, and has it gotten 100? A little better? Yeah. But I mean,
at least.
The point is, when you hear this conversation about merit and DEI and all of that, how do you react to it when you hear it?
I mean, part of me wants to write it off a little bit, and I think that's preservation, just like literally emotional preservation, because it enrages me so much. Okay. And I hate always feeling like we are just pushing everything as far back as we can. And I still just go, this is not what the majority of this country wants. Why? How is this possible? And then there's another part of me that goes, yeah, take away Women's History Month. Like, you fucking thought you want to die on that hill? Die on it. Like, it's all performative. It's all theatrical. If it's symbolic of we want to get rid of women, like, good luck. And I just look around at the 20 and 30-year-olds that I am in contact with. You are closer to that because you have kids, and I just go, please don't just plug in and tune out or feel a sense of just complete, like, I can't do anything. We've lost the battle. Please feel enraged. Everybody that is not like working on a gender binary scale. Like, please feel enraged. I just don't want everyone to feel apathetic, because what's coming at them is so brutal. But I feel like it's meant to incite apathy, not.
That's interesting. What are you seeing around? You're talking about 20 and 30-year-old comics, generally speaking, that you're around and working with? Or
yeah, no, I mean, my husband has a job where the majority of the workforce at that job is in that range. And then I have plenty of friends who are, their kids are like their kids, same thing. And then, my nephews and they're all these people I know, very intelligent, smart kids. But they're a little bit like, yeah, they kind of walk around in blankets asking for, power cords, to plug in their devices.
Yeah, the blanket things with the blankets with the sleeves. That is a literally hilarious description.
Oh my God!
Of people that age.
Get out of the blanket.
You think the blanket is somehow creating apathy? Like it's a barrier for them to not receive information?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I just feel like if you're in a blanket, you're a little bit like, I'm not heading over to the march.
I'm not venturing out anywhere, anytime for anything, unless it's a power cord.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A latte, an overpriced latte, or new mixed drink from Starbucks. So, and I do feel like a lot of this is performative, and I say that from self-preservation. And then every day I hear about a new thing and I go, oh God, is that performative, or is that going to be something that affects?
It is a good way to look at, it really is a good way to look at what you're hearing and seeing in the news, how much of that is performative. And, for example, the whole argument around tariffs, was that just performative because nothing actually happened? But at the same time, something does happen as the result of someone's performance. People get emotionally wrapped up in things and very concerned about things. So I think it's healthy that you're trying to think of it that way, so that doesn't happen to you. But the truth is, all of Canada is really mad, I hear.
So mad. So my feed has a lot of Canadians in it because they're my friends and people I live with and for years. And their Instagram, just their social media, was holding up coffees and products and things, just being like, Canadian made, buying in Canada, don't care. And I was like, oh, guess what? We have never had Canadians with ego before. So get fucking ready. You don't know what angry Canadians look like. Nobody does, except for hockey players. We've all met some hockey players.
Well, so
imagine that on a national level. Okay? Unpack
that a little bit for me. You grew up in British Columbia?
Alberta, which is like growing up in the most conservative part of Canada.
So that's what I'm interested in right now. I'm going to talk to this guy as Canadian commentator tomorrow as well.
Great.
I'm interested in the general spectrum of politics, and I've talked and learned a lot about it. Obviously, it's a much different country. It's only 30 million people, but they're even more diverse culturally than we are, more open-minded, universal health care, a lot of different values and systems and history, obviously. But I wonder if the way that Trump is talking about making Canada a state, much less the trade war, is bringing people that generally would have differences, Canadians that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, together to be like, listen, no, we disagree on a lot, but we agree that we don't want to be America, and we don't like the way that you're talking down to us and our leaders. What are you hearing? Is it bringing?
Oh yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that I think for the entire time of my life as a Canadian was almost a joke about how Canada was searching for a national identity, and how, because of its diversity and because of the Francophones versus Anglophones, that there was, and the Maritimers versus the prairies and all this stuff, I'm talking like Canada does really see itself in terms of these languages and these resources.
Sure.
And how everyone felt so separate, and that it was really more talking about, multiculturalism and heterogeneity, and it was very hard to find a national tie. I did feel as soon as I moved to America, like America was so good at this patriotism and the symbolic aspect, and I really thought about like, the melting pot is a really big deal here. But I think when you do, the one way that Canada has expressed its nationalism is its differentiation from America, and for that to be dialed up in such a resource-based way, because that's where you're hitting the core of what Canada's economy is based on. There's some tech there, of course, but it is all about coal, water, agriculture,
lumber.
Obviously oil. And Alberta is built on the oil industry.
Yeah.
So a lot of Albertans hated Biden because if you remember, the day Biden was sworn in, he stopped that Keystone Pipeline executive order.
Yep.
And that tens of thousands of people got laid off.
That's some dirty, filthy kind of tar sands oil coming from Alberta. That is bad stuff.
Bad stuff. Destroys the environment, destroys habitats, destroys the air, destroys the water, destroys
Good
it all.
in a smoothie. We'll say that.
So I think it's kind of interesting from like a emotional point of view for Canadians. I think you're going to see this. I think you're going to see more nationalism coming from Canada as people are united. Maybe unity. I mean, Alberta always sticks out differently because Alberta wants that. I think they will want what Trump wants, but they also want to sell, and they don't want a tariff. They want a profit.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens. It's because this trade war thing seemed like it lasted a day in America, but it seems like from what I'm hearing from Canadian listeners and friends, and reading Canadian news and commentators, it's not. It's going to stay. They're not going to forget this because he keeps talking this way. About it, what an unbelievably condescending thing to hear from the American president. You know, the things that he said, most Americans probably haven't heard, or they've just shrugged because it's about another country, much less our neighbor to the north.
And one that they don't care about at all. I mean, the other interesting thing is just to add another angle, and I'll look forward to hearing what your Canadian commentator has to say about this, is that Justin Trudeau, obviously he is retiring, he's leaving. And so, but of course, there's not a new person who's been appointed as the head of the party to go forth in the election. But he is at an all-time low in terms of
popularity,
how people feel about him.
Mm-hmm.
And that currently has turned around drastically. So you also have to think about it from his point of view as a politician who wants to maybe he has a consciousness about wanting to leave on a high, or that people love him right now in his response.
But even the conservative guy, Pierre, whatever his name is, seems to have a similar response. And
True.
Chrystia Freeland, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I used to know her really well. Chrystia Freeland and I worked together at CNN, and it was always she was always, as I say, everybody knew that she was the smartest person in the room, and that you wouldn't want to be on the other side of an argument, because we argued a lot on these shows that we were on. I was always on the same side as her or following her lead. But I mean, she wrote amazing books. She's brilliant. And hearing her reactions to Trump and seeing that she might be the next leader there, I'm like, this woman is so much smarter than Trump. And
well, then she won't get it.
Probably won't get it. Is that?
Sorry.
Are you following closely?
There's a few other people, but I just feel, God, I do feel, unfortunately, my sister's a political science. She's a very brilliant academic. We talk about this all the time, and she is, she's also a bit of a pessimist, I think, from a well-founded point of view. And she is like, do not think Canada is not in step with what is going on globally with this conservatism and this these leaders who are so focused on creating oligarchies rather than democracies. And just Canada's a couple steps behind. Like, you can watch the same thing happen. It's just going to take longer.
Yeah,
that's her point of view.
There's the anti-immigrant movement and there's the attraction to authoritarianism, and often they go hand in hand. But at the same time, Australia's not really headed in that direction. Australia just passed a law that prevents billionaires from donating more than like $20,000 to political campaigns. Like they're way ahead of us. I mean, and I don't know how serious that is, but hopefully your sister's wrong about her prediction. She might very well be right. I want to talk to her, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I hope she's wrong about her prediction too. And I think she tends to do the, like, let's look at the worst things so we can be surprised when it's slightly less worse.
All right.
But also I do, I hear that. I think there is this, it's such a, why, how did we just, everyone go, oh, fascism, great idea. Let's get on that. How did that happen? And I will say, even with what's happened with the tariffs, I always get, and we've talked about this before, all these people always saying to me like, oh, take me with you to Canada. Oh, when can you adopt me so I can go to Canada with you? And to all of those people, I just want to say, you don't need an invitation. You don't need Trudeau or any other leader to hold out their hand or put down a red cot. Just go.
I feel bad now that people say that to you because I've gone way. I probably shouldn't tell. I said I'm going to kill your husband and marry you against your will, and you just stare at me. You're like, can I get out of the car? And the door's locked.
I know, and I guess I still have to return that $10,000 to you, but I spent it.
Yeah, she had to improv. I mean, she had to go along with the murder of her own husband.
I know.
$10,000, by the way. That's all.
I know. That was a down payment. I was affordable back then.
It's so great to talk to you. Let me just ask you how you're generally dealing with like the news and news cycle. It's the flood of sludge. How are you balancing your work, your family, your marriage, your friends, obviously your son, and taking in that news and it affecting you or not affecting you?
It's affecting me so much. And this is a terrible way to go about it. I basically, I do some stuff in the morning for me and work, and then I start to read the news. I go to my few sources, and I listen to my podcast while I'm doing my errands and doing pickup and drop off. And then anytime something drives me into an emotional spiral, which is every other thing right now, I basically text it to my husband with a question mark. Like I make him the American. Like all of a sudden he's American and I'm Canadian.
Oh, that's good.
And I am here like kidnapped against my will, speaking of.
So just
I just texted like to do whatever, hour ago, I just texted him like, really? JD Vance? Cassidy wants to thank JD Vance for his honest counsel? What is that, blackmail? What do they have on this guy? Question mark. Send.
So just in case your husband's having like a moment of peace or he's doing good, he has to now answer for whatever anxiety you're having based on whatever news item you've seen.
Yeah, that's what I do.
That's one way of coping. Bringing somebody else into it.
I throw the emotional burden on him. You deal with this. Hey, can you deal with the Department of Education, please?
That's
brutal. That's my coping.
Oh, whatever works. I hope. How does he usually handle it?
I mean, funny because I literally texted him earlier today too. Those were other real texts that I order my groceries when I'm running low on time from Fresh Direct. Mm-hmm. And you cannot get eggs right now.
Oh, in New York City.
It's like earliest delivery of eggs you can get is Friday. So I haven't checked the grocery stores. So I don't know if we're dealing with like people hoarding eggs because they're worried that the price is about to go up or that the supply is about to go down.
Well, I think that bird flu thing is an issue.
That bird flu thing turns out to be an issue.
Yeah.
And so I texted him this morning. I was like, no eggs on Fresh Direct, ... It begins. And then he wrote back, go to the grocery store and buy as many eggs as you can. And we, so we just started on this whole.
You should take the bit all the way. And when he comes home, just have a chicken, one hen.
I've always wanted a chicken. I've always wanted
I got a hen.
Chicken. I hope.
Oh my God.
Fingers crossed.
You'd fuck it up. And I mean, you'd accidentally get a rooster.
Exactly. I was like, I didn't know some of them don't have combs.
That's a rooster. All they do is fuck. It's not going to lay any eggs at all, and they're all assholes. What did you do? You brought home the Pete Hegseth of chickens.
Yeah, I know. Well, in Brooklyn, I would probably get a chicken that they would be like, this is a they, them. And I'd be like, that's great. I'll have that chicken.
We don't know what it is.
We don't know. We don't ask. Okay?
We're not trying to tell this chicken how to live its life. Does it lay eggs? We don't know.
We don't know. So yeah,
right, well, it's
but
great.
I do think it's interesting that yes, that's due to avian flu. But I think a lot of people think that the eggs are controlled by another country or immigrant. Like I think that people don't even understand why there's a shortage.
That's just going to be. That could be the best of it is having an egg shortage. We'll see. I mean, I just don't know what to think if things get bad. Like I'm like, what does it mean for things to get bad? And if things get bad, or do they get bad for people who support Trump? And if they get bad for people who support Trump, does that matter? Are we having elections?
I'm with you.
Are we still doing elections? Are they even going to those who support Trump? And if they lose their health care, are they going to blame it on him, or are they just going to blame it on liberals or something? Like it's hard to know where we go and how bad it gets and what it's going to mean for different people and their interests.
Well, I mean, if you can blame a helicopter crash from last week on Biden.
Well, that was because he hired little people to work in air traffic control, and they weren't tall enough to reach some of the controls. That's the bit, by the way, that Michael Costa did on The Daily Show. I was like, that's a little edgy.
It's pretty wild. Yeah. That is pretty wild.
But that's the point that he was trying to make. He was trying to make that if you're disabled physically, but you're cognitively brilliant, you can't be, working at NOAA or some government agency, doing science. It's just so short. It's so dumb.
Well, as I guess if you're cognitively disabled, how would you even tell what's going on?
Well, there's a job for them too. It's called the United States Navy. Wow, did I just offend the whole Navy? Not every job requires you to understand how to fly.
Navy.
It's the Navy.
Can you kind of swim?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That guy is dumb, but he can swim. All right.
Man, have you seen Butterfly?
Put him. Why is he's a Navy SEAL. Why is he just doing a backstroke? Doesn't seem very manly.
While whistling.
Well, listen, I think everything's going to be fine.
Really? Okay, great. Thank God.
I'm not worried about anything, and I'm gonna see you in Vegas, and we're gonna have a great time.
We're gonna see you in Vegas, yes, and let's keep those positive thoughts. Next, we'll talk about positive affirmations next time.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Oh,
that's
God,
okay. No, please
do that whole conversation about just toxic positivity. All right, we'll revisit it next time. I'll let you go now because I forgot I wanted to talk to you about that. But there's no shortage. Ophira, we love you. We thank you, and we'll see you in Vegas.
See you soon.
Yeah, Ophira Eisenberg, everybody. Isn't she the best? Isn't she great? I hope you liked that conversation, and I would love for you to go tell her on social media that you heard her here. Go let her know. She'll see it. Check her out, OphiraEisenberg.com, and subscribe to her podcast. Parenting is a Joke. You get the opportunity to see her live. Do not miss that opportunity. All right. That's all I've got for you on today's show. I'm so happy that you stopped by and listened to it. I'm sorry it was up late for those that like to get it early in the morning, but it's hard burning the candle at both ends, hosting the Hangout on Thursdays and Monday nights to get it up sometimes, so I appreciate your patience, and I am so thankful for your support, your friendship, and your part in our community. You bumblebees that listen all the way to the end, wow, we almost did 2 hours today, so you get special kudos and thanks from me for that today. John Carroll sings a Santa Out every day, johncarroll.org. Go buy his music. Take it away, John, and look for more from me this weekend.